Welcome to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today, I am joined by a new guest, but somewhat familiar. Today's guest is an ultramarathon runner, adventurer, all-round good guy. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jan Bovey.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much.
I've actually been pre-warned by a couple of people that know you, Hannah Maynard and Leah Byrne.
Yeah.
They said that...
Stay away from it.
They didn't say that. They said they were excited to hear that you were coming on the show as well because they really enjoyed Jodie's episode. I think that locally, Jodie's episode went down really well, but they told me that you and him would be very different to interview. So why do you think they've said that?
Oh, I don't. I think we're very similar in a lot of ways, but very different in others. When I was going to say he's hectic, but then so am I.
Yeah, nice.
We both lack a good vocabulary. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer, really, because in many ways we are very similar. And growing up, he's always sort of, if we've done activities, football, rollerblading, whatever it is. He's usually started it, and then I followed.
Class.
Yeah.
Oh, but then, so before the show started, we had a good little chat anyway about like your brothers and how you've been brought up. And I said to you that Jodie said to me on the show that you were a really good influence on him with the long distance stuff, which I'm sure we're definitely going to chat about today. But earlier in your life then, that wasn't the case. It was him that was the trailblazer, so to speak, and you followed suit. Whereas recently in life, it's been you that's kind of set the...
Yeah, 100%. He's always been naturally gifted at anything. My friends, I'm not being funny though, my friends would probably say the same as me. Oh, he's so natural at it. It's not hard work for him.
So he was a good footballer, wasn't he?
He was a good footballer, yeah. He was a good footballer, and considering because I was one of those kids that would just indulge in a little bit here and there. I was never fully focused on something. But now that I've got older, that one thing that I've always been interested in is running. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it and why I'm so good at it, considering I've always done running, especially when I was a kid. Early memories was being a very good runner, long distance straight away at school. And not knowing that I was a good runner, because in my head, when I used to see like the Linford Christies, the 100 meters, I'd be like, well, that's a good runner. Whereas now, looking back on it, what I should have classed or what I should have known more about is the long distance stuff, because I always had an engine. But yeah, so I don't know. I would say that it's just it's one of those really, yeah.
And all three of you, so you spoke about all of your brothers before the show started, turned into adventurers of some kind, and you all seem to have a really good relationship in terms of the closeness of that. What are the benefits of being close to your brothers, and how has that developed over time?
Say that again, sorry.
So in terms of your brothers, obviously you and Jodie have kind of followed each other in terms of the age groups.
Yeah.
Jodie has followed you in terms of the long distance stuff. You used to follow kind of his trailblazing as a youngster.
Yeah.
And also Matt now, who's the youngest of the three of you, has gone on to do his own adventuring.
Yeah.
How do you think that's developed, and what's been important about the closeness of your relationship over time?
The closeness of our relationship is brilliant because it gives us... We can push each other all the time. Yeah,
amazing.
If we didn't have each other, would we be doing as well as what we are doing? But we definitely spear each other on. We definitely help each other. And it's one of those that if one's doing really well and the other one not so, we wouldn't feel horrible about it. Or do you know what I mean? Like, not that we bad mouth each other anyway, but just be like, oh, I'm disappointed that I can't do what he's doing at the minute, or or progressing like I should be, like he's doing. But yeah, so we definitely help each other in a positive way.
They say that environment is really important no matter what kind of journey you're on, whether it be coming off of alcohol, let's just say drugs, or even getting fitter. The fact that the three of you are almost doing the same kind of things in terms of the goals you've got with your running and the adventures and stuff that you're going on.
Yeah.
The fact that all three of you are doing that probably makes it easier. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. It's I don't know. It's nice. It's nice that if Jody was to go out and do his running, and then I was to go and do my running, we'd always meet together. Like, it's never him just going off and doing something on his own. I would always like sort of be there, and then Matty would also sort of join in now, but he's gone more like at the triathlon side of things now.
Okay.
So yeah, it's good.
So you spoke to me earlier about having those memories early doors of running being the thing that you're like, oh, I'm pretty good at this, even though there was that comparison frame of I wasn't running fast, but I could run for a long time.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your first memories of starting to run.
First memories of starting to run was probably from the police. No, it was my first memories was in primary school, Hewish Primary School, where my kids now go. And I remember doing the 100 or just doing it. It wasn't 100 meters. Obviously, it was just the sprint because obviously we were young.
Yeah.
But I remember doing that.
Like at the yearly sports day kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd be really good at that. I would always win them, and then as we got older, I'm just trying to think, like sort of year 5, year 6 is when I noticed that the kids. I've always been small, but the kids were getting bigger.
Yeah.
And when you start getting bigger and taller and stronger, the shorter stuff was becoming easier for them, and harder for me. So. And I was literally just lining up one time, ready to go and run around the school field. I think it was like 2 or 3 times. And my mate said to me, he goes, "You'll be good at this." And I sort of looked at him and I was like, "What do you mean I'll be good at this?" He goes, "This is long distance." And I was like, "Yeah, what does that mean?" Didn't really have a clue. And he said, "Oh, just wait until you go out running." So went out running. It was the year 5s against the year 6. It was year 5s and 6s. And I ran around there, and I actually won the whole thing, and I was lapping people as well.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I thought to myself, I'm not bad at this running malarkey, because I enjoyed playing football. I enjoyed we played basketball as well. But running was always my thing. It come naturally to me.
And then going through school, obviously you found out early in primary school that it was something you were good at. Did the journey develop through to secondary school as well?
I mean, it did in some respects, but I sort of, because I was always doing different things, like following Jody type thing, just doing different things. Because he wasn't doing the running, then although I do it at school, and I'd do it at school, but I'd never go to just trying to think Olympiads or anything like that, which looking back on it now I'm a little bit gutted about, because I feel like I could have done so much more with running, and been such like a better runner, but I just didn't. I didn't. But seeing as I've come into the running sort of late, or come back to running, but taking it to the next level, like doing ultras is a different kind of different kettle of fish, isn't it? It's a very different game. But what I like, I've always considered myself, because I've had Jody as an older brother, I've always considered myself to be quite weak-minded. Like, oh, I give up. But with ultra running, and I'm not sure if it's like having kids has made me a bit stronger mentally. Doing ultra running now, you go into such a zone of mental toughness. Like, every inch of you wants to give up, but you don't. You just keep pushing on and pushing on and pushing on until you get to that finish line. And weirdly enough, this is what I love the most now. I love that mental battle of it. Like, and I'm starting to get like, I'm starting to be like, no, I am strong-minded. I can do this, because my mates, if you speak to them, they'll say, oh, we already knew that he could do all this. Do you know what I mean? But deep down, they know that, mentally, I've always considered myself quite weak. But since doing ultra running, I've definitely become much more of a stronger person.
I like to dive into the whys on things. And you say that you were Jodie's younger brother. Was there a sense of, because he was a trailblazer as a youngster, you thought you were not lagging behind, but not quite as like outgoing as he was, not quite as confident and stuff? Was that something that played into this kind of apparent weak mindset that you thought you had?
Definitely.
Really?
Yeah. When you've got a brother like Jody, and this is bigging him up massively, this is not a dig or nothing, but when you've got a brother like Jody, it's hard for anybody to recognise you. Like I'm always in his shadow. Like, Jody's the best at this now. He's best at football, best at motocross. We've done motocross. And for me, it's never bothered me. I'm happy for that. I'm happy that my brother is so good and naturally gifted with things. But what people don't understand is that you might say he's naturally gifted, but he puts in 110%. Like he's full on with everything. Like he just doesn't give up. Like, when some people, like, when they get knocked down, they're like, oh, I'll just give it a break for a bit and then I'll come back to it. Get knocked down, give it a break. He's full on. They take knock after knock after knock. You can I swear?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You can beat the shit out of him and he'll just keep getting back up. Like, he's just got that mentality. So it's nice for me now to have something where I am like, no, I'm equal to you now, like in a positive way.
Yeah.
It's not like, I'll go running with Jan because I know not that he'd ever think like that anyway, but I'll go running with Jan because I know it's going to be easy. Now he's like, I'll go running with Jan because he's going to push me.
Yeah.
So we help each other. And we've got this little thing at the minute, and he's going to hate me for saying it, but I always say, you can't complete these long distance runs unless I'm there, because he went to go and do his first time that he attempted 100 miler. He obviously failed, and that was because his knees had just gone. They were the doctor was like, you've got to stop. And he would have kept going if he didn't see that doctor. But luckily he did, because it can do more damage. But yeah, in the second time round that he tried it, I did it with him. And yeah, he beat me, but he did it.
Yeah.
And I say that's me pushing you on.
Good. Yeah, I like it. It's what is interesting about the ultras and even the marathons, is they are literally a case of, you don't know what's going to happen. They're all individual events, aren't they? You can sign up to 500 milers. I've never done a 100 miler. Yeah. 34 miles was the longest I've done, and that was fucking long enough.
Yeah, but still, just getting to 34 miles, you're still going to go through all the pain, suffering, mental toughness, what you go through in a 100 miler.
Yeah.
It's an ultra for a reason. An ultra is anything above a marathon. Yeah. So, and that and when I say that, is that when you're in those ultra miles, you get that you've gone through all the motions, and you only get that with ultras.
Yeah, and what I was saying is that, as Jodie's injury example gives us, you could sign up to 500 milers. None of them would ever be easy. One of them could be the best 100 miler you've ever done. Two of them, you go through that wall and you hit the wall and you have to fight through. And then the next one you do, you're going to get an injury and you do have to pull out. Yeah. That can sometimes be the toughest thing, can't it? Because you set yourselves up for these events.
Yeah.
And then you get, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through, you get an injury, and that is genuinely your last 4 months of training, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
Out the window until you sign up for the next one, recover and go again.
Yeah. I had one race. It was, I'd done it before. It was the 60 miles, Lyme Regis to Ham Hill to Lyme Regis.
Yeah, I love it.
Dave Irwin's event.
That's soon, isn't it?
As soon again. I'm in it again. Me and Jody pretty much do it most years now. Since the first time, we've done it every year. But the first time that I'd done it, we did it together, and not that it was easy, but we done it, and we did it quite comfortably.
You finished 1 and 2, right? Is that
we joint third?
Joint third, okay.
Yeah, we were racing against like 2 GB runners.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that again, different levels. But then that it was a learning curve for us that we're all right at this.
Yeah.
And our pace. You always worry about pace. Am I going fast enough? And with ultras, just get that out of your head. Don't even worry about speed. It's not about pace at all. Just, especially for your first one, do the miles, see how you are with it, and on the next one, if you feel like you can push, you push a bit more. But going back, so I went to go and do the next year on. I went to go and do the Lyme Regis to Ham Hill to Lyme Regis again, and I went over a cattle grid and twisted my ankle. I had another sort of 5 or 6 miles to get to Ham Hill, and then I seen like my family, my wife, my kids, and I was like, I'm gonna have to just bail now because it was hurting that bad. But even then, I felt so. I don't know what word you'd use, but just like, you're pathetic.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, it's just a hurt ankle. You just got to keep on. And then like the wife, she was like, why? What you proving? You did this last year. You're not proving that you can do the miles.
Words of wisdom.
But in my head, it's that, you got to let go sometimes. It's like you're going to hurt yourself more by pushing on through. And ultimately, I had another goal that year, and that was the 100-miler. So for me, it was like, you've already done the distance. You don't need to do that, but just leave it. Don't even worry about it. So I pulled out, and then went back to my house, had a shower, got back in the car because I couldn't stay away from it, and I said, let's go and follow Jody around and cheer him on, and that's what we done.
Unreal. What I can resonate with you there is, I've spoken about the marathon and the highs of it, but not really dived into the lows of the London Marathon for me. And I did it for a first marathon where I was going for a time in 4 hours 35, which I was really happy about.
Yeah.
My dream goal would have been to go just under that 4.5 hour time. That would have been perfect for me for a first one. And I was literally cruising. This is a story everybody knows. But when I hit that mile 21 and I hit the wall and got a horrific cramp in my hip flexors, in my hamstrings, in my calves. It was everywhere. It just wouldn't go. And when you're walking, essentially, I was like bimbling along kind of thing, barely could run. I'd try and run. I'd maybe run 500 meters and then bang, like you'd shoot up again, you'd get cramp, and then you're walking to recover. You do go through those things like you were saying, like, you fucking idiot, pathetic, got on with it. But sometimes if your body's saying, nah, it ain't happening, Harry,
listen.
You've got to listen to it. And the other lesson from that for everyone to take away from this episode is for yourself. If you wouldn't have pulled out of that Weymouth to Ham Hill and back, Lyme Regis to Ham Hill and back, and you'd have carried on, could have made the injury worse, and you would never even have got to the 100-miler later on in the year. So
it's pointless pushing yourself sometimes. And I love technology, don't get me wrong, it's great, heartbeats and everything, but I run mostly, when me and Jody, we run mostly off of just how we feel.
Yep.
The only negative to me and Jody is that even if we know that we are pretty tired one day or feeling fatigued, and the other one isn't, if he's doing it, I'm doing it. So do you know what I mean? It's like, so we are each other's own worst enemy in a way. But apart from that, we're good to go with each other.
Tell me about 100 miles then. What kind of things do you go through when you run 100 miles? I know I can't even, when you say you've done an ultra and people are like, how far? And you're like 34 miles. People are like, wow, that's pretty insane. And obviously for me, where I was,
not a lot of people can do that.
23 stone to that is a cool enough story. But then you're like, fucking hell, another 3 of them, basically.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And when I first started, I was exactly the same. I was looking at like, the first ultra that I'd done was 34 miles, I think, or 36 miles. And I remember finishing it thinking, never again. That's it. I'm done. Like, I'm happy that I've done an ultra, because I classed an ultra as any type of miles. In my head, I think that was my way of just sort of like being okay, settling for 36 miles. Literally 2 months later, I signed up for another one, and literally forgot the pain and suffering that I went through. And I signed up for I got it tattooed on me, 46 miler then.
Wow.
So after I'd done the 46 miles, that was the one run that's nearly broke me. And when I say broke me, I mean, I don't want to do this. Like, I know I felt that feeling on the 36 miles, but this was the first run where it was in December, and we were on cliff tops, and the rain was just pounding down on us from whenever first thing in the morning, 7 o'clock that we set off in the morning. It was dark, and then by the time we'd finished, it was dark. But the rain was just bam, 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 and we had our hoods up. But the wind as well, where it was pushing the rain onto us, it was hurting. And I remember getting to these steps, and I can't remember the name of where it's to now, but it was these steps, and it was just constant on and on and on. And I was like, I've got to do another lap of this. Just, it's one of those runs where you've got to do like a segment a couple of times. And I was looking, thinking, oh my God, I've got to do that whole sort of like 10 miles again. And Jody sort of caught up with me because I weren't far in front of him. And he caught up with me, and he just looked at me and he went, Jan, you all right? And I was like, Matt, I've hit the wall. Like I've literally hit the wall. I know what hitting a wall means now, and I've hit it.
Try and describe it for people.
Because your mind wants to give up, everything starts shutting down. Like your legs are like, no, I'm not moving now. Like I'm not moving. Like what? Don't do this. What are you trying to prove? Like, yeah, I know you think that you're weak-minded and stuff, but who cares? And those negative thoughts come into your head. You like
try and justify it.
Yeah, who cares if people think that you're in your like? It's okay not to be like. It's okay. Like, and then all of a sudden, after I had, I spoke to Jody about it, and I was just like, oh, I've hit that wall, blah blah this, blah blah that, and then all of a sudden we got to like the brow of the hill, and then the sun come out, only for about 5 minutes, but the clouds broke, the sun come out, and then I was like, I just had this new lease of life of like, fuck this, let's go get it. Let's just finish it. And even if you don't do another one, this is 47 miles with like 8,000 feet of elevation. This is no, it weren't. It was 10,000 feet of elevation.
Unreal.
And I was like, that's, even if you get to the end, that's it, done. But literally got to the finish line, and then my wife and kids and that were there, and it was quite emotional. But then after I sort of like a week or two after, I got that hunger of, no, I like that feeling. like
the lows, yeah.
Yeah, I like this. Like if you're feeling that low, you've earned it. Like you've earned to feel that crap and that low. So whilst you've earned it and you've done all those miles, let's see if you can push yourself a little bit more. And that's how I dealt with it. Whereas some people would go, nope, that's it, done, I'm out of there. Whereas I've switched that, and I've been like, nah, let's go for it. Let's go for more.
Yeah, unreal. I completely agree with you. I actually found doing the London Marathon harder than the Ultra, believe it or not. And the reason for that is because of the pace setting.
Yeah.
I set myself a pace to go for. I think, like I said to you, when I realised that I couldn't continue that pace for the last 5 miles of the marathon, I beat myself up about it, which made it less enjoyable. When I did the Ultra, it was about, can I get round 34 miles before the cut-off? Yeah. That was the only thing I cared about, and I was way ahead of it, and the pressure was off. Yeah, I experienced a bit of like, fuck me, this is a long way, and my body was trying to tell me, oh, it doesn't matter if you don't do the last checkpoint. But one thing that I did have on the Ultra Marathon was when I got to the halfway point, which would the 17-mile point, I felt all right, and as soon as I got halfway, it was almost like a reinforcement of the fact that the training that I'd done up to that point was worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had that feeling as well on some of the longer runs you've done. When you get to that halfway point, you kind of know that you're in the game, if you like. You're in the moment. Everything's going well. Everything that you kind of plan to do on the day, your fueling, your hydration, all of those kind of things are going well. You're like, yeah, like whatever happens today, no matter, regardless of the time, I'm not going to finish. And sometimes with ultras, that is primarily the goal. I mean, of course, you and Jodes now, and you're at an unbelievable level where you can do them and do these things quickly. Whereas for somebody who's obviously very beginner and novice at that long distance thing, I think it is just about start and
finish,
get to the finish.
Yeah. And don't be put off or be afraid by what other people have said about them as well. Because if you had spoke to me after my first 36 miler or my 46 miler, then I would have been like, if you'd listened to me, I would have been like, oh, don't do it. It's hard work, you know?
Yeah.
But now that I've flipped that, I'd definitely say just even if it's just one ultra, and it doesn't matter how many miles an ultra is, as long as you're just getting in that, you're going through those motions. Because when you go through those motions and you get to that finish line, is there a better feeling?
Do you think that you have to love running to love that long distance element though? Because
that's hard for me to answer.
Yeah, and me as well. And I'm sure you have the same conversations with people when you talk about running. And again, you've gone further than I have. You've done more of them than I have. When people ask you about it, they go, I couldn't do that. I just don't like running. And
that winds me up. it not winds me up, but it does get to me a little bit, because I think, like, I do love running. I do love running, but and to think of life without it does scare me, and we'll look at that closer in a minute, because I've got an injury. But yeah, it does scare me not to have running, but at the same time, like, running does help with a lot of it helps with a lot of issues. Definitely helped with my age, albeit I love running, but it's helped me become stronger. So that's like one thing that I've definitely taken away from running.
And that's the question I think even I'd ask myself is, do we love running, Jan, or do we love the positive impacts that running's had on our lives?
Positive impact, definitely.
And what have those been for you?
I do.
You've mentioned the mental toughness that's come from it.
Mental toughness.
Obviously fit as a fiddle now.
Structure.
Yeah.
It gives you structure. Because, a day in a life for me is, I'll go to the gym to do strength work. That's with these ultras, that's key, because since doing strength work, I mean, I don't know if you suffer with cramp when you do it, especially when you're doing a lot of elevation.
Horrendous, yeah.
I've pretty much stopped cramp altogether now, and that's even when I'm pushing. So strength work is definitely key, and yeah, there's lots of positives that you can take for it. But yeah, strength work. So we're doing gym about 4 times a week. Once on upper body, because you just got to get that in. I don't have no enjoyment on that.
Get the arms in, mate.
Got to do it. Got to balance it out, ain't you?
Yeah, you know.
Especially when my calves are like the biggest muscle on me. Yeah, so I do gym about 4 times a week, and then I'll run. If I could, I'd run every day, but I can't because of my injury. So I run sort of every other day.
Okay.
And I have to judge it on the injury. If it's feeling okay, then I'll run sort of on 2 days, as one after another. But other than that, I can't go every day.
You mentioned earlier as well, I like to talk about these things, the impact that being a father has had on you as well as a person, and probably the impact that you're going to have on them by taking on all of these tough challenges and
lead by example.
Wanting to lead by example, yeah. So being a dad to you, what does it mean?
I've always, but everybody knows this. I always wanted to be a dad. Like, even I can remember from a young age, I wanted to be a dad. But being a dad and being a good dad is 2 different things. It's so draining. It's so tiring. But at the same time, I want my kids to look at me and be like, right, I don't just sit in and play. I'm all for, you can sit in and play on your iPad and stuff like that and play computer games. Like, I've got no problem with that. But it's a balancing act. Like, if you are doing that, make sure that you are also getting your kid enough exercise, because it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, they're playing on their iPad, they're quiet for 5 minutes. Yeah, that's great that they're quiet, but like, they soon grow up, and then if all they've known is to just play on the iPad or play on a computer, then they're just going to be in that sticky situation of just not exercising.
Because you mentioned to me the other day that we rearranged, didn't we, for today, that you were going on a little mini break with the van down to, was it Cornwall, you said?
Exmouth. Yeah.
So being outside in nature as such with the kids and your wife, is that important to you? I mean, obviously you do the running, you go outside a lot with that, of course, and I'm not sure how much of your training you would do on a treadmill. I'm assuming not much of it at all.
On a treadmill?
Yeah.
Literally nothing.
Yeah, which I think is really good. For me, what is the point of running on a treadmill when we live where we live, and you can literally go and run round like
Nine Springs.
Yeah, the most beautiful places. Well, some of the most beautiful places in Somerset, Devon, Cornwall are literally half an hour's drive from where we are. So that's my own opinion. But being outside in nature and in the outside environment, how important is that to you and your family?
Yes, I will just clarify. We didn't actually make it because the camper broke down.
Oh, no.
I had to say that because the wife would be like, "You should have mentioned that it broke down."
Yeah,
But no, yeah. So we didn't make it, but it's very important. It's good to just get out there and just and just walk, like, because obviously my daughter, she's 6, so you can't go running or pushing her to do too many miles. So to go out and just go for a walk, and then we've got our dog Sonic, which my son named.
So say, is he a fast dog?
He's a fast dog.
Yeah, he's a fast dog.
He's a Labrador crossed with a collie. Labs have kind of got like a bad name where they eat everything, including their own feces, in sight. But yeah, and they obviously gain a lot of weight if you don't keep on top of their fitness and stuff. But where he does a lot of, he's done the hardest one that he's done for him, and I say hardest one for him because we got to, this is when I was training for Dragon's Back. We got to West Bay about 4:00 in the morning. Have you ever gone from West Bay to Golden Cap?
Yeah, no, I haven't. But I've done a trail run around the Golden Cap route, which I know is tough terrain anyway.
It's tough terrain, but we did it in the summer, and it's just 10 miles there and back.
Okay.
And I was running there. Me and him ran there and back. We did about 26. He did 26 miles, and he did 9,000 feet of elevation. And basically what happened, because he's never stopped. He's always in front of me. He's got a lead and everything. But we were on one of the hills, and the amount of people that would stop at me and saying, "What are you doing? You've done this hill about 20 times and that." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm training for Dragon's Back." "What's that?" "Oh, just go and Google it. You'll see what it's about. Watch clips on YouTube." And yeah, it was just one of those where I looked at him and he just led down, and I thought, he's done in. Like, he looks knackered. But at this point, it was when the sun just started coming out, and he's a black lab, so he gets really hot as well. So I was like, "Right, boy, time to take you back." I have treats and that, so I'm feeding him treats and water. He drinks. This sounds pretty sick, but he'll drink the water. So I'll put the water in my mouth from my bottle, and then I just feed it to him, chuck it out, and he's there going, And people think that's gross, but it's our bond. It's our thing,
100%.
And then I took him back to the van and give him some food, and then I just stayed on that hill where I could see him, and then I was just running up and down that hill just to get to 10,000 feet. Because I was at 9,000. I thought I wanted to get to 10,000, and that's what I'm doing. So I did it, and that was by myself, and that was hard work. But I was thinking to myself at that point, this ain't nothing compared to what I'm going to be going through, especially when I'm doing 10,000 feet, 11,000 feet daily for 6 days. But yeah, my dog did it. So
what's interesting for me, Jan, is that you have done that challenge, the Dragon's Back challenge, which you say is a ridiculous amount of a ridiculous amount of elevation and miles and horrendous terrain, or beautiful terrain if you look at it from the other frame in terms of where you are and what you can see.
Yeah.
But you've looked at your 46 miler as the one that challenged you the most.
Yeah.
And you've gone and done that, and you don't even. Well, I'm sure it pushed you to the absolute limit. And Jodes he told me the story that one of you was really struggling on one of the days. Is that right? Was it him or was it you?
He struggled.
Yeah.
Yeah, on one of the day. He struggled on most of the days. And I did as well. Because of his injury, his knee, it was just like once he's got fluid on it, it just swells up, and then he's just in an absolute agony. But it was our feet as well. Our feet were really bad. Like, the pads are they take such a pounding that they just become really sore, and then you're just sort of like look at the next person, and they're going through the same, There's like a selective few that weren't going through the feet pain. And I was looking at them thinking, you're so lucky, because if I didn't have this pain, I'd be able to get these done, get this done over each day done quickly. So each day was just like, right, let's go at it again. The trouble is with me, I wasn't eating as well, really, because I suffer badly with sickness when I do these ultras.
Is that nerves, or is that because you're trying to fuel at the same time, do you think?
Yeah, I get nervous. I've always struggled with my nerves really bad. Even like with football, like even though I'd be playing it every week, I just used to get really nervous before each game, to the point where I'm like, why this? And that's where I'm so bloody weak. No one else getting nervous and stuff,
People do, but people either show it or they just hide it. I think one of the most important things that people speak about being introvert and extrovert. I think everybody's got both trends to them, or both types to them. Both people, for me, I'm an extroverted introvert. I love nothing more than sitting in on a Saturday night on my own, play Football Manager and watch some World War II documentary, right? That would be me fine. I'd quite happily not socialise with anybody, given the choice. Not given the choice, but if there was no other options, I'm happy to do that.
You're happy to do that.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. However, stick me in a pub with 15 people, I'll probably, given the environment, I'll probably be one of the loudest people there, and I'll probably get involved with a conversation and things like that. But one thing that I always say to people is, people always say to me, I've told this story on the podcast, but I've been thinking about it more recently. I've always been good at talking in front of people, always. But doesn't mean that every time I have to talk in front of a crowd, whether it be 50 people, 10 people, 500 people, you still get nervous.
Yeah.
There's no way you're not going to get nervous.
No.
Because there's that human instinct in you that doesn't want to get judged by other people.
Yeah.
And you're worried that you're going to be rejected by the crowd, right? That's just something that happens by being a human.
Yeah.
But some people can channel their nerves, and you learn to channel your nerves by continually doing the thing. So now you've continually done ultra after ultra, long distance run after long distance run.
Yeah.
You've channeled those nerves to be able to, I'd say, productively use them.
It's helped me even just with talking on this show.
Yeah.
You know, like when you first asked me that question, with all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're going on now, and then I had to put these headphones on, and I was just like, I can hear myself. This feels weird. and I can feel my heart rate going up, and then I'm just like, oh, what are you on about?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But that like running's helped me in that way, where it's gone, right, you're in this, you ain't going anywhere. Sit there.
It's just see you run out the room.
Yeah, look, do you know, even though those thoughts go through my head, I'm like, no, just call it quits a minute.
Yeah.
Just stop it. And it's just like, no, just calm yourself, Jan. You're on an ultra run here.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking.
An ultra run on the 100% podcast. Love it. And I think as well, I think Jody, when he turned up as well, he openly said he was shitting himself.
Yeah.
And he was, and it took him a while to warm up, and it just turns into a chat, as he probably explained to you as well. And I think the same, on a different side, you were pretty confident when you came in, and for the first 5 minutes on the show, you could just see you tightened up a little bit.
It definitely.
And then now it loosened up a little bit.
Yeah, and I have now. Like I don't feel my heart rate going crazy, and I feel like now it's just a conversation. Like, you know, and I. Like my wife said to me this morning, she was like, oh, are you nervous? I'm like, no, not at all. She's like, are you not? And I was like, no. I was like, it's talking about the thing that I love.
Exactly.
It's just talking about running and stuff, you know, and I love talking about running. You know, go to work and then don't really say much to the customer. As soon as I see a pair of running shoes, oh, do you go for runs then, mate? And then that's it. We won't stop talking, you know, but I love it.
So your confidence improved from the running that you've done as well then?
Yeah. 100%. It's definitely one of those where I can use that as just to chill yourself out and just deal with what you've got in front of you. It's helped me in work as well, whereas I was kind of like kind of a hothead. So if a customer didn't like something and they said it, I would react. Whereas now I'm like, oh, okay, is there anything I can do to help or to make it better?
That's so interesting.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's helped me even in my job, you know.
I have to ask, do you run with headphones?
I didn't run with headphones for years and years, and then my wife bought me a pair about 2 years ago, and I've started wearing them. For a while, they were in the cupboard, and I did, like they're like those Beats ear ones, and what are they? Best part of like 100 and something quid, and they were just in the cupboard, not being used. And then I was sort of having to sort of force myself to use them. Like, oh, you've got earphones there, just chuck them on. So now, because I do a lot of my runs with Jodie, I don't need to use them. But if I go out and just do like a run around the block or something, 5 to 7 miles, I'll chuck them on. But when you're racing, you don't. When I'm racing, I'll never wear them.
I was going to ask because I thought you was going to... I assumed, you should never assume, but I assumed you'd say no. But I do believe that I talk a lot about meditation and being present. And I don't think there's many other things that can get you as present as running. Because, as you say, you and Jodie run by how you feel.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you're doing there, is being present to how your body's feeling, how you're thinking, like in terms of the pain that you may be going through, how your heart rate's feeling. And I do believe that we've all got that reactionary side to us, right? Somebody says to us, you haven't fitted those windows right, or I don't like the colour of those windows, for example, for you. Or for me, if I'm driving for work, or somebody says something to me at work or whatever, you get triggered, don't you, instantly? I find the more things that you do that make you present allow you to interrupt that instinctive feeling, that instinctive reaction that you have. Because how many people do you know that would still just go, oh, fuck off, or like, fuck you, or driving in a car, you fucking like, just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I find the more things you do that allow you to stay present. So if it's for us, it's running. I do a little bit of meditation as well, even cold water therapy.
I do that every day.
There you go. So you think about all of those, you may not even know it, or like, I'm sure you do know it, but some people may not even know it, that all of those little things that just allow you to become a little bit more present.
Yeah.
Stop that. It's like essentially your like monkey brain going rah all the time.
Yeah, because where I go in the cold water, I got one of those Lumi pods, recovery pods, and I'll literally go in there, and that's my form of meditation. I'll go in there, I do 3 minutes or a little bit more, and I'll do my heavy breathing, and that's the one thing I felt hard now, because I couldn't do my... because you'd be like, what the fuck is he doing? Do you know what I mean? So when I get in those situations...
I wouldn't have judged, by the way.
Nah.
Yeah.
But when I get in those situations, I will go... and I'll just do those deep breaths and just take yourself back to that cold, the Lumi, and I'll just be sat in there just nice and chilled. And that's when I can't do it for long because my brain's busy, but every now and then I can shut my eyes and like for literally like however long, like seconds, and then I'll be like, oh well, I'm here. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, man. I think as well, it's a misconception with meditation and becoming present that you're supposed to stop your thinking completely. Whereas when you meditate, it's just about getting used to the busyness of your brain. Again, something I'll always repeat on the pod when it comes to mental health, or like whether people call themselves overthinkers, or whether it be that you don't think you can meditate because your brain is too busy, which you hear a lot in the coaching space. And you say your brain is on average going to have 60,000 thoughts a day. You can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
What you can do though is just sit and watch him.
Yeah.
Not get too involved. And that's the way that I think of it. And when you're in ice water, freezing cold water, or on a 10,000 foot incline run, you get present as fuck.
Yeah.
You hear those thoughts going, stop, Harry, stop, Jan.
Get out.
Yes. Get like next checkpoint, fuck this, sack it off, take your running vest off, we're done. But you just overcome them. And that I think is the best thing about, like, when you do these hard challenges, it, as you've said, it builds that confidence, it builds that resilience, it wants you to do more afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it.
Gives you a bit
most.
of like purpose of life, and instead of this mundane, like when you're younger and you sort of doing your working career, or you can you become a master at your trade, if you like, and it's like all about making money. Then all of a sudden it's like, it's not. Life ain't about making money. Like, fair play to those that is their life. I accept that. I get that. That's their drive. But my drive is not that anymore. My drive is to get that, see some places, experience things, and put yourself in those situations where you do want to give up, because once you come out of them, it's the best feeling ever. Like, if I do a job and I get paid for it, I'm never like, oh wow, that's a great feeling. Like, I don't get that sense of like, and I get some people like, oh, I've won this contract, and so I get that. But for me, life's not about that. It's about putting yourself in those difficult situations and like coming out and being negative, but turning it into a positive. So, and that's definitely one thing that I learned on this one as well. The oneer, that was brutal, but like, you know, my wife would say that I was running through that like it was easy. Like, it was one of those races that everything was just clicking.
Yeah, I love it.
So luckily I didn't really go through much of a pain cave.
Wow.
It just triggered. Everything worked right.
That was reasonably recent, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, when was that? Tell us about it.
So that was about, a couple of months ago now. So it was it was Charmouth to Studland. So it's 80-something miles with 10,000 feet elevation. But on the day, they changed the route. They said because of the high winds predicted early hours in the morning that we had to start at Charmouth, run to Portland, run around Portland twice, and then run back to Charmouth. So it ended up being a little bit more. It was like 85 miles in the end, with like 11,000 feet. But yeah, I was running that race with most of it with one pole. I don't know if you've ever used running poles.
Never used poles yet. Nah.
So I use the running poles more for when I'm going uphill, because it just gives me that drive. Yeah, and I at the start of the race, my pole jammed and I couldn't get it out, and me and Jodie were trying to get it out, and we couldn't. And then before you know it, they said, off you go. And we were like, oh my God, we're back of the pack here. Not that matters too much over those miles, but it kind of had an impact towards later on in the race, because we'll put it this way: when we had done Portland twice, it's about 28 miles back, and the leader was 7 miles in front of me, and I caught him up, and he was only 6 minutes in front of me.
Wow.
And at the time, I was beating myself up, like, oh my God, my pole, if it didn't jack. And then it's like, oh, so what? You've just come second, like, in this massive race. Like, who cares? Do you know what I mean? So, Again, whereas before I would have been het up and, you know, been real peed off about it, like, now I'm just like, so what? I'll go run again and see what I can do in that, you know? So, again, I'm using it positively and not being this angry child.
You know? Which we all can be, by the way.
Yeah.
100%. What else then? I mean, we've spoke about the resilience element. We spoke about the being present element of running. I imagine there's been a lot of changes within you, the same as your brother, with this whole new outlook and dynamic of your lives with the long distance running, becoming a little bit more based on the let me get my word right, the experiences of life and where you are. What else have you learnt about yourself that you didn't know until this recent adventure when it comes to running?
The main one's going to be that I am strong. I am strong-minded. I'm strong-willed. I'm self-motivated. Definitely. I can literally just go out there and just attack whatever I want. You know. I don't know why this comes to my brain. I'll just say it. But when me and the wife sort of like bought our first place together, going into furniture shops and stuff like that, I was always shy away from it, because I'd walk in there thinking that they were thinking, oh, what's he doing in there? He don't know what he's doing in there. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas now, Sade says, like, you're a completely different person. Like, you just go and attack anything.
Love it.
And
I fucking love it, man.
Yeah, it's just, in that, you know, it's just that's kids as well that's done that to me. Is they've not that I needed growing up, but they do help with that. But I'll always be like young-minded, like young person. Like nothing's going to make me grow up too much.
I think there's a real balance in that, and I'm not a dad. I'd like to be one day, but I think there's a balance between taking life seriously, which of course you do, especially when you've got kids. You kind of get forced to, right?
Yeah.
And when I have these conversations with people, they can be serious, but it's important as well that you have that part of your brain that is still a little bit childlike. Like you want to experience, you want to have fun, you want to find out new things. One of the most like impressive people I've ever spoke to on the pod, a guy called Dax Moy. He's a incredibly well established coach. Got his own qualification and stuff that he created, and it's now a degree that he runs for his own. It's just mad.
Wow.
He says it's important in life that you stay childlike, not childish.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're describing now. Is childlike is you're inquisitive about stuff. You still have fun, but being childish is somebody that has a strop and says no to things and is really like one-dimensional minded. And I think that's something that, from what I've learnt from you and your brother, and this is your podcast today, by the way, but when you mentioned one Bovey, the trail runner, ultra runner, long distance runner, the other one is always in tow. So it's interesting how that conversation's gone as well. But I can see that, and I mean this with the greatest respect, that you've become childlike with your behaviour and less childish, and I think that's such a cool thing.
Yeah, definitely. They make you grow up, but not too much. But because if I become like some people where they have kids and then it's just like, oh, I'll just do that mundane everyday stuff, go to work and pay the bills and go shopping or clean the car. Like I do all that stuff, but I also do stuff for me. And when I say stuff, I mean the running.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so it makes you grow up, but don't grow up too much where you just become a bit of a bore. You know.
In terms of men's mental health, you've mentioned a couple of things today as well, which I am. You're coming across quite a positive guy. You say this running part of your life now is your purpose, which is quite a big word and an interesting word. I'm a firm believer that when I was at my lowest and I was essentially depressed, and I've told the story about where my life came to a bit of a head and I had to make some changes, take a bit of responsibility. One of the biggest things for me in that period was that I didn't have anything to work for, wasn't working towards anything. If you didn't have those big runs on the horizon and you weren't striving towards something, do you feel like you'd still be in that place where you were having those moments?
Recently I've been having physio and stuff like that on my like hip flexor. I was struggling with that, and I recently had an appointment at the hospital with a hip specialist, and they said that they would offer me an operation. 70% chance that everything could go okay, 25% chance that everything could go okay, but I wouldn't be able to run because it'd be too physically demanding. 5% chance that it doesn't work at all. And that would mean that they would have to put my foot in a boot and then pull it out of socket, if you like, my hip out, so then they can get in there and then basically onset arthritis, scrape away some of the bone that's rubbing. So I get flare-ups on my hip flexor. And when he told me that, albeit that's great, thanks for offering it to me, because he only offers it to 20% of his patients. But at the same time, it's like you're telling me like so blasé, not understanding how much running means to me. So as soon as I got out of the hospital, I started crying because I was thinking, all I thought of was me not running. So that to answer that question, what would I do without running? I would try and help others that can run. I think I'd try to go on to coaching people, or not. I'm not really much of a coach, but especially with that's it. It would probably give me the confidence to go out and then start do you know what? Let's go and start coaching.
Mate, you've told me already you're somebody that goes and attacks things now.
Yeah. So yeah, if I couldn't run, I would probably I wouldn't be able to stop, running side of it completely. I would have to have something I'd have to have something to do with it, But it would, when you first get told things like that, something so big, to most people, like, oh, brilliant, I have the operation, that's great. But for someone like me, it's just like, it is a bit of a kick in the teeth. Like, I couldn't picture myself not running. But if I couldn't run, I would help others that can to become better at it, And I definitely think that the first people that come into my mind is my kids. Like, if I could help them a little bit more or whatever. But I think I do enough with them at the minute, because you can push them too much at such a young age, like 6 and 8. Like, you don't need to do too much because they're not developed yet. So yeah,
I think that's so important as well, because you see the parents, and I know that everyone's doing their best, right? And I think it's everybody's, when you love football, it's everybody's dream, especially now with the resurgence and the increase of the popularity of the women's game.
Yeah.
Whether you have a daughter or a son now, and you love football, it's like the push of wanting them to play football, and then when they play football, you want them to be amazing.
Yeah.
But remembering that the likelihood is that 1 in 50,000 people,
it's like winning the lottery,
will ever be that good. And of course, you look at the names in the Premier League, like a lot of these talents have sons, they've got the DNA, right?
Yeah.
And I sometimes you hear the stories, parents being pushed too hard. You hear the stories on a Sunday morning down Mudford Rec of parents being overly mouthy and overly competitive, and I think there's a balance between making sure that your kids are competitive and driven, and they don't just always fall to the back because that's okay.
Yeah.
But you also don't want them to be driven to the point where if they like failures, they think failure's not an option,
and they fall out of love with it.
Yeah, exactly that.
It happened. So with my boy, it happened. He was always had a ball at his feet. So he's a good footballer. But he always had the ball at his feet, inside the house, outside the house. Jack stopped kicking the ball about, that kind of scenario.
Nice, yeah.
And it just got like where I was learning as a parent that don't keep pushing them. Right, go outside and do, 10 keep-ups or go and hit the crossbar and stuff like that. And then when you're watching them play their grassroots football, you're there shouting at the sideline, you're like, get out run out there, blah, blah, this, blah, blah. It's like he then become sort of like he's sort of become away moving away from it, and he stopped playing in the garden. And then I had to it was a reality check for me, like he's not at that, he's not strong enough yet to be able to listen to what I've got to say. It's almost like abuse, like where you're just constantly on them. And then I had to like take a step back and be like, chill out, Jan. Like, he's 7 years old, or he's 8 now, but like he's young. Like, it's under 7's grassroots. Just chill. Let him experience things for himself. Let him become mentally strong. And when I say that, like, when I listen to David Goggins, he motivates me. Now, some people that I speak to, they say, "Oh, don't he do your head in? He gives me a headache." And I'm like, "Oh, that's just where we're at. We're at different levels of mental toughness, if you like."
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I need if someone just shouts abuse at me, I'll watch me prove you wrong.
It's like when you say to somebody, if I was to say in general, your own mental health and your own physical health is your responsibility. Some people would get completely triggered by that.
Yeah.
Because they're not at that stage where they're willing to take that responsibility of, hold on a minute, this is my thing. Like, I can look after my brain, I can look after my body if I choose to do some actions towards it.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the Goggins thing, right? Because he's the most motivating. Like, if you hear what he does and how much he does and what he talks about, can be the most motivating person on the planet, as you say.
Yeah.
But again, if you're not ready to listen to that message and strive to be a tougher, more physical, resilient version of yourself yet, then he's probably the worst person that you're going to listen to, right? And you're completely right.
Yeah.
Going back to the football conversation as well, it's interesting. I was listening to John Terry on Simon Jordan's podcast. I think good recommendation, actually, just on what we've just spoken about there. He was saying that his old man was a punisher when he was becoming a footballer to the extent that when John Terry chose who he was going to sign for at academy football, he chose Chelsea, and his dad was a Man United fan, and his dad wanted him to sign for Man United. It was the day where John Terry was going to go and sign his youth contracts at Chelsea. His dad basically had a strop in the tunnel and was like, I'm not signing the contracts.
Wow.
Kicked off. Glenn Hoddle took him in the change room, and then his mum came out and sneakily signed the contract for John Terry, and then he was a Chelsea player. But he said because of those things that happened when he was a kid, he hasn't really pushed his son, George, on to play football and push it into him. But his son's now turned around and said, "Oh, Dad, I wish you pushed me a bit more when I was younger."
Oh, see, it's catch-22.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it, how it can... But I think as well, when you've got somebody like that, and again, it fits back into that DNA thing.
Yeah.
If you know that your dad was that good, England captain, Chelsea's most successful captain, like Champions League winner, blah, 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 you think, oh, that's probably in me if I'd have worked a bit harder.
Yeah.
Maybe. Obviously, it doesn't always work out like that.
Yeah.
When you're a grassroots player, youth player, it's different. Even like you hear the stories of the kids that get into the Yeovil mini academy, right? Like, and you hear about parents pushing them and stuff. You're like, come on, chill. This isn't like one of the best academies in the country. This is Yeovil at the end of the day. But yeah, no, it is really interesting. All of the trials and tribulations of life and parenthood, right?
Yeah, yeah. He was at Yeovil, and he got, I don't know if they call it different now, but he got put into the advanced group.
Yeah, amazing.
But I don't like to sort of badmouth. It wasn't right for him there. He wasn't progressing there, or not progressing. He was doing perfectly well for a 7-year-old, but he wasn't getting anything out of it. We took him out of that, and the coaches that he works with now for Saints.
Oh wow, yeah, unreal.
Yeah, he loves the coaches there, and he gets, like, they get down on his level or down on their level, and they talk to him like, you know, they respect them rather than just do this, do that. It's like they're trying to teach them like life skills as well.
That's the quality of, and again, not bad mouth and no disrespect, that's just the quality of coaching, right? You've got,
I think,
levels of for sure.
Yeah, but he's definitely excelling where he's to at the minute. And like, you know, like we say to him, as long as you're enjoying it, then keep doing it. You've got to enjoy these things, and he's a very good runner as well.
Oh, here we go.
He's very good.
When's he going to be joining you on the slopes of the Dorset coastline then, mate?
I mean, because he's 8 now, so next year, so he'll be going in September. He'll be going into year 4. So again, you know, I spoke to the coaches at Saints and I said, how much training should he do? Because I don't want to beast my boy. I don't want to push him too much. And he was saying they want to be doing like 3 things a week. And if you're doing a 4th, just let them have fun with it type of thing.
Yeah,
I know people that are pushing their kids in to do something every day, twice a day. And I'm like, you're killing them and you don't even realise it. Not killing them, but like, you're more prone to injuries with things like that if you're overusing your muscles, especially when you're not developed.
Especially as well, you know the availability of sports to kids, and I'm assuming really myself, again, no experience, but you can just imagine you've got basketball, swimming, athletics, football, rugby, cricket, all of these things you choose from. You can only go and do one of those things once, twice a week. So sometimes if you are pushing them to all of these classes, they're going to be turning up to things that they're not even that asked about, surely.
Yeah, ours was swimming. We took both of them to swimming, and we always said we wanted them to just learn how to swim, and then that's it. It's that we were thinking if we were on holiday, and not that we ignore our children, but let's just say we were going to get a drink or whatever. That's not alcoholic. Because I don't really drink. No, but if we were at the bar or whatever, and then the kids got pushed into the swimming pool, and ultimately they could, you know, get pushed in and then swim and get themselves out.
Get out, yeah.
And they both got to that level, so not like brilliant swimmers or anything like that, but they can swim enough to get themselves out of trouble. And then, so we carried on for a little bit because I wanted to become sort of like fluent swimmers, you know, like, and I said to the wife, Sade, and I was like, it's pointless them going because they're literally like hating it so much. Like sometimes you need to, if you don't like doing something, it's like callous in that mind. If you don't like doing something, do it. But we can say that because we're adults. When you're a kid, like, you don't need to push them like that. Let them have their childhood. And then when they get to like a certain age, they'll work out what they want to do full time. You know what I mean? Like with the football or swimming or whatever. And then you can start pushing them in the right direction, giving them that positive impact, you know, instead of just being negative all the time. This is what you didn't do in football. This is what you didn't do in swimming, but this is what you should have done. You don't need that. Just, you know, watch videos. So if you've got a kid, if my son's taking free kicks and they're not great, you know, they're shocking, get him to watch video clips on David Beckham. Oh, you see the way he's positioned himself? There's a way of talking to a kid rather than just being like, you need to do it like this. That's the wrong way. Do you know what I mean?
I know it's maybe I'm wrong to think about it like this, but they say even with coaching, so with a client, not comparing my clients to kids, but you could, and there are coaches out there that would just tell, this is what you should do, this is how you should eat, this is the exercise you could and should do, but that gets nowhere. The ideal scenario for me is that somebody comes into my program, they find a challenge that they're having with their, whether it be nutrition or exercise, and then you ask questions. Like you say, are you looking at the way that David Beckham's striking the football? How is he doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, what lessons have you learnt from what you've eaten this week? How has it made you feel? What lessons have you learnt from what you've eaten and drank at the weekend? How has it made you feel? What impact has it had on you?
Yeah.
And then people learn, especially kids, learn their biggest lessons by making those mistakes. And I had a really educated nutritionist coach on this week, Rob McGeary, and he says he wants his clients to make mistakes.
Yeah, because you learn from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with, you could link it to everything. Our running experiences, our life experiences, mental health, physical health, whether you've gone on a coaching program, done well, done or not done well, whether you've had kids or not, all of those things that you've made mistakes with, whether it be relationships, life challenges, choosing to do the wrong thing at the weekend, money problems, those lessons that you've had, those mistakes you've had have given you the biggest lessons that have given you the biggest takeaways.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is life can be hard if you make it that way, but it can also be easy. It's just choosing the right path, and you might not know what the right path is until it's too late. But then what do you do about it? Do you just stay on the floor and just cry, or do you get up and do something about it?
Get up and do something about it, mate.
You know?
Yeah, and this has been an hour and 7 minutes of unbelievable.
Has it honestly?
Yeah, man.
That's flown by.
And it just. I have two questions that I always finish the podcast off with on the 100% podcast. One of them will get you thinking. First one, what's next for Jan Bovey?
I've just booked it. So I'm obviously doing the Lyme Regis to Ham Hill to Lyme Regis again, the local one. That's in June, and I've just booked into the Arc of Attrition as well. So
tell us about that just quickly.
That's 100 miles in Cornwall, around that sort of area.
Wow,
so
nice.
It's going to be very up and down, and it's been taken over by UTMB now as well. So it's a big organisation that have taken over it. So yeah, that's what's next for me. That's what I'm in training for now.
Love it. The final question of today's podcast is, what is the greatest bit of advice you've ever been given?
Keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. If you're being pushed back, keep going forward, because you'll get to that finish line, or you will achieve what you wanted to achieve as long as you keep moving forward positively.
Boom. Fucking love it. Today has been an episode with Jan Bovey and me, your host, Harry Purley, on the 100% podcast. If you had enjoyed today's episode, please go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Drop a 5-star review on the show. It helps me a long, long way. Push the show out to further algorithms and all that kind of stuff. And if you're watching on YouTube, Jan, give them a wave. Hello.
Hey.
Below us here, like, subscribe, drop a comment if you want. Let us know your thoughts on the episode. That also really does help, especially the subscribing. I'd love to get this podcast to a place where it's reaching more people, because I think the valuable conversations we have can influence. As well as that, final note of today's podcast, I do give away my 14-day free journal in the link in the description of the podcast and the YouTube video. So if you want to give that a go, it can improve your productivity, your mental health, and your mindset, and get you achieving things that you didn't think were possible. There's a link in the description for free. I'll see you here with a new episode every Friday. Take care.